Natalie Miles, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Stu. I'm really
Ab-
excited for the rest of this conversation.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being here. I would love it if you could kind of just to start and kick us off here, if you could kind of give the audience a little bit of an insight as like, what did life look like for little Natalie as you were growing up?
Yeah, little Natalie was strong, feisty, independent, sporty, creative. Yeah, was wanted just to take on the world. Didn't want to sit still at all in the slightest.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, I just used to, yeah, I had so much energy and it needed to be
Hmm.
funneled somewhere. I was someone that was, as a kid, I used to get I could get really angry and frustrated as a kid because I had so much energy. And we realized that also has been connected to my intuition. Obviously, I'm a psychic medium. And so I had all this energy and being really
Yeah.
intuitive as a kid. And if it wasn't funneled like through my body in the right ways, I used to get like, yeah, really frustrated. So my parents cottoned on quick that it was something that if I was moving my body, whether it was through sport or through
Right.
dance, that was something that, yeah,
Yeah.
it
And
worked.
and can you tell us, because like so you're this fierce little kid, lot of ton of energy,
Yeah.
and doing some research for you, I stumbled upon kind of like the I don't know if I would say this is the start. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of the start of like, wow, I really got something here with like my intuition and like,
Hmm.
being able to like connect here. And it was when you were 5 years old and you're sitting in your bed. And I'm
Mm.
just curious if you could kind of expand upon that story and share with people like this
Yeah.
first time you kind of tapped into this. Because
Yeah, so age 5, my spirit guide. So we will have like a main spirit guide that's with us from the moment we're born until the moment we pass over. And my main spirit guide appeared to me for the first time when I was 5, and she appeared at the end of my bed as from memory, like a light, like a being, like she was there at the end of my bed, and she was just there saying, it's going to be okay, you're okay, I'm here to look after you, I'm here to guide you, I'm here to protect you. And I just remember being a kid and being like, what, like, whoa, like what is going on, but also felt really safe and really looked after and really held. So that was the first time where I was visited by something
yeah,
from the other side that I remember. And I used to always, and I also had like crazy dreams as a kid, like really big dreams. And I'd share my dreams with people and they'd be like what? Like you, what
yeah,
happened? I
what
used to
happened?
travel a lot. Like what happened? So yeah, it was from a really young age that I realized
Yeah,
that there was something going on in dream state, that I was seeing, like that I could see things, or and things were communicating with me. And also just realizing, and this is only on reflection as an adult, just realizing how sensitive I was, like
hmm,
sensitive to environment, sensitive to people's emotions and feelings, and being really good at reading adults as a kid and knowing
hmm,
when something was wrong. And then, as adults, when a young child is being like, are you okay, is this happening, are you feel like, and then a lot of the time adults are like, no, like they don't want you, that they're in like adult mode. So
yeah.
yeah, on reflection, that as well.
Yeah, especially if you had a 6-year-old child come up to you and be like, "This is happening in your life," you'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Like we're not having this conversation, little
Yeah, there
kid."
there were times I remember. Yeah, there were times of me like communicating things or asking questions of adults, and yeah, it being like, okay,
Shock.
we're not having this conversation with you as a below 10. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, that's so cool. So then, let's say we kind of jump forward because I kind of want to get into one part of your story
Mm,
where, I know you go to college and eventually you kind of get into this whole film world, and
yeah.
I'm curious for you if you could kind of share with the audience and us like how did you go from you kind of have this intuition and these connections as you're young and
Hmm.
eventually you go into the film world. So kind of how did that
Yeah.
become?
So I the everything just got shut down. Like there's this element of stigma and shame around sharing your intuitive gifts. I went to like a psychic circle when I was like 16, and that was like the first time that I really shared messages with people. But then I was, I didn't want to be seen to be like the weird one or the strange person or the weird
Right.
kooky girl. I was like, that isn't happening. It would have been
Yeah.
like Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I always loved visuals, like visuals and film. It's always been something that's really powerful for me. And it's interesting in reflection that it was connected to the intuition, because I also I see a lot of messages. So those visuals have always been like really strong. So I always had a really strong visual connection. But I finished university. I then I was actually a semi-professional rower for a while. So I went and did I was training full-time, twice a day, 6 days a week, as well at one point. And then when I realized I wasn't going to make the Olympics, I then decided no like low level goals here. When I was like, no, I'm not going to be an Olympian, because I love the Olympics. I went traveling, and then at one point I was going to become a dive instructor as well. I got offered my sponsorship to become a dive instructor on a boat,
Like
in
a scuba
Australia.
dive.
Yeah, like scuba diving.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I was, but the universe had other intentions, and I ended up back in the UK getting a job in film as a runner, actually for a sports-based film company. So they were a duo. They made Olympic bid films for the Olympics, and I was like, I want to work
kind of
in
like the way you could still be in that world.
Yeah, so I got to tell the stories of being in sport, and then I was in film for like 10 years, and within those 10 years I moved to Canada. So I got this intuitive hit. I was done living in London. Something wasn't fitting. I was like, this doesn't feel right anymore. Like I need to make a change. And actually I visited Vancouver during the Olympics in 2010. So do you see the Olympic connection that runs through all of
Right,
this?
for real.
Yeah,
You're gonna
there
get
really
there.
is. The 2010 and I visited the Olympics in 2010 in Vancouver and said, one day I'm going to live in this city.
Right.
And life transpired, and I
So
moved here.
So if we jump back, kind of two things that I'd love to kind of dig into is one, sometimes what I've seen working with people is they're trying to figure out their life. It's like the perfect example here is like you're connected to the Olympics, you have this aspiration, you're semi-professional rower, like you're really going that route, and eventually kind of the light bulb goes on one day and you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to be professional in this, but there's still a way to stay connected to this thing that lights you up, this passionate thing that excites you, versus saying, if I had this one dream. And I think sometimes people go, well, if I can't make the full dream happen, then I got to go.
Done. Yeah.
But
Left
it's like
field.
you can still get connected to it, right? And in a different way. It's just you kind of got to get creative. And so I love how you do that. And one other thing that you said there that I want you to kind of expand upon is you said the universe had a different plan. So like, can you walk us through that? So you're semi-professional rower, maybe going to go to the Olympics, maybe going to be a dive instructor, however that even comes to fruition or becomes a thing. And then what do you mean exactly the universe? Because obviously you're all about helping people tap into their intuition, this thing that's guiding them. And so I would love to see kind of how did you go through that?
So the switch of me, I was living in Australia. And so I was living in Australia. I'd gone traveling after like not knowing what I was going to do. So I went off and was just like, I'm going to go and just discover myself. I'm just going to go and go on this journey. They offered me a, to stay as being a dive instructor. And I fell ill. And the day before, the day before I said, yes, I'd love to be a dive instructor. Yes, please. Please sponsor me to stay on Australia. Right. And the next day I fell ill and I ended up with an infected gallbladder and having to have my gallbladder removed. And I ended up in hospital in Australia on my own for 3 weeks. And then I flew home to the UK. And that was the only thing. If that hadn't have happened, I would have carried on being a dive instructor in Australia. That wasn't,
Hmm.
and so that's when I say like the universe had other things, because sometimes we have those life moments that come in and shift and change us that don't make sense at the time, but only in reflection are like, oh, well, of course this had to happen in that way. Otherwise, my life would have gone on a
Yeah.
completely different tangent. It was the same when I moved to Canada. I got this intuitive hit of like, no, you need to be living in like, you need to make this happen. And I said, right, I'm going to give myself 4 months. I'm going to give myself 4 months and see if I get a job. And it was intuition, because I wasn't doing the work that I'm doing now in
Hmm.
the UK at all. I was still working in film. And so it was when I stepped away from my family, my comfort zone, like, or everything that was keeping me like
Right.
safe in that
Yeah.
space, or living this life, where I actually had to go and rediscover who Nat was, who I had to really be like, okay, where am I? What am I doing? That I was guided back to working with my intuition. I was guided back
Yeah.
to that this was the thing. And I was still working in film, and I was really unhappy, like really, really, really unhappy. Like they were offering me jobs. They were like, do you want to be a director? Do you want to do this? Do you want to
Right.
do that? And I was like, nope, nope, nope. This doesn't light me up. Like,
Right.
my whole body.
But you were successful in it. Like you were doing well from the
Yeah, I've
outside.
traveled the
Nat's
world.
got it all figured
Yeah,
out.
yeah. From the outside, it was like Nat's traveling the world. She's got to work on some really amazing projects. She,
Yeah.
yeah. I've filmed all over the world. I filmed in the Amazon jungle, like
So cool.
all this stuff. And I was like, nah, this isn't me. This doesn't fit
Yeah.
anymore. And they let go. I was let go of my job. They were like, we're letting you go. You're not happy. Go and discover what makes you happy.
They
And
fired you and said that.
yeah.
What a beautiful company.
I was really mad at the time, as you are. I was
Yeah.
really angry and frustrated. But do you know what? 3 months previous, I'd already started the branding for my first ever intuitive based company. I'd already started the branding and what the
Yeah.
name was and what it looked like. And so when I said to my guy, like, well, what's next? It was like, hello, you've already been setting up your
Yeah.
business on the side. Like you wanted the
This is
push.
it.
And I share with people, when you're not listening to your intuition, to your own inner guidance, your spirit team, or they're throwing you the mini pebbles. And if you're not listening to the mini pebbles, the rocks get bigger. And if you're not listening to the rocks, then the life-changing moments come in, those big life-changing moments, whether it's a health crisis, the end of a relationship, the losing of a job, to be like,
Yeah.
hello, are we doing this? And that's
Yeah.
what those moments for me were. The health crisis on the boat with in
Right. You're
Australia.
not supposed to be here.
You're not supposed to be here, Nat. You're not supposed to be doing this isn't the path. And to
Yeah.
where I am now doing what I'm doing.
Do you think that that like inner voice ever goes away? In the example of, like, let's say you stayed in film and you're like, you know what, this thing's here, but like I'm making good money, like I'm doing well, like, because I think sometimes people have that thing that's pulling them and showing them, and the pebble turns into a stone, turns into a boulder, but they're still sort of like, well, this is, I'm still doing okay here. Like, do
Yeah.
you think that ever goes away, or that if they don't follow that pull, that intuition, that it'll kind of always stay there?
I think for many people it just becomes this energy of like, I'm just going to keep doing what I know is true. Like, you're just going to keep going and going, even if it doesn't bring them joy. That's why we have so many people in jobs that they don't really necessarily
Right.
enjoy, but they're going through the motions. But I would then, if you're someone that is that, I'd be like, well, what are you doing outside of work that brings you the joy, that lights you up? Like, if it's not the work, if it's not the work, how are you balancing that out? Because
Yeah.
that's just really, really important. But I think personally, there is always that deep longing to do what you want, that brings you joy, that brings you
Right.
that deep satisfaction, and being open to that it changes. Like, I'm still evolving in my
Yeah.
work.
Always.
Like, I still feel like I'm finding direction.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, of like us getting to evolve and adapt as we're like, we discover new things about ourselves,
Yeah.
or we suddenly realize the things that don't bring us joy we need to let go of. And that's the biggest challenge, is having that confidence to let go and to allow yourself to evolve, and also allow they want around, do you know, when we have this projection of what other people think of us, or
Yeah.
especially in like what we do or what we're passionate about, like people like project stuff onto you as well.
Right.
And so sometimes people stay in work and jobs and things because that's how other people see them versus how they
Mm,
see themselves.
right. Right. But at the end of the day, you're the only one that lives with you the rest of your life. But
Exactly.
easier said than done, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. It's about, yeah, I mean, for me, and in an intuitive level, I say it's all about trust. Like, it's, how do you trust your intuition that's telling you to make the change? Or what, how do you do that? And working with your intuition is a muscle. So the more the more
right.
you trust it, the more messages you
The
see, the
stronger it
more
gets.
action that you take on it, the bigger the messages and the guidance that
Mm.
you'll get. And so it is sometimes about taking that leap of faith and jumping in and being like, okay, this feels like a hell yes in my body. Like, I'm getting the signs. This feels like a massive hell yes, and trusting and jumping.
Right. So from working with, so many people that you've worked with, I'm curious, what would you say is the difference between someone that gets this intuitive pull and says hell yes versus you work with someone and they get this intuitive pull and you see someone that just whether it's a hell
Yeah.
no or it's just like a
Yeah.
it's
So
that
many.
uncomfortable feeling that they just never
Yeah.
follow it, like.
Fear, doubt, and someone that has never either trusted themselves ever before in the past, or that there's always yeah, either trauma in the past around trusting yourself, or not feeling like
Mm,
you, from external, like childhood trauma around like not trusting yourself, or or honestly sometimes like big control freaks around, like if you're someone that wants to know every
right.
single piece of the information. I mean, I'm pretty type A, and people always joke that for someone who, if you're into astrology, I'm a Virgo rising. So I like to know details. I like to know the plan ahead. How does that work with intuition? But that can be this element of over controlling, and also someone that is really like, is scared of like making mistakes.
Mm,
Of sometimes we put all this pressure of like, we don't want to be seen that we've made the wrong mistake, or we've taken the wrong path, or and that can be for ourselves, and also the fear of the judgment of others, like fear of judgment of friends, family, colleagues, of like that, oh well, that means you messed up. And what I say, when it's connected to when you follow something intuitively and you take that leap, you it's not that you received the message wrong, or you received the intuitive message wrong. It's actually that was how it was supposed to go, because you had to learn something about yourself
right.
on that route, on that journey, to get to where you are. Like, and even now for me, when I'm working with my intuition in my business, there are things that I'll look back on and that could be labeled as like, well, why did you do that? Like, why
Yeah.
why did you do that? But for me in those moments, it's like, yeah, but wow, like look what it taught me about like myself and my own healing, or where I'm kind of need to evolve or adapt, or where my
Yeah.
ego is still running the show in certain ways. So yeah, it's
Right.
that's what I say on that.
Yeah, it's interesting too that you say that because I work with a lot of people trying to help them figure out what like really lights you up in your soul, and it's like even as I look back on my journey of getting to where I am today, there were so many from the outside maybe people would say wrong decisions where it was
Hmm.
like I did this one business for a little bit and then I went into action sports for a little bit and then I even once upon a time went to an acting class and like I did all these things to go through the process of figuring out what I didn't like because that gets you more clear on what you did like. But
Yeah.
some people may look at it from the far and they go, well, you wasted a year in the action sports of your life and you wasted a year, you wasted a day going to that class, you wasted 4 years in that other business. But it's like, no, those were all necessary things, like you said, to give me sort of like a message and a lesson and a learning to
Mm-hmm.
ultimately get me to where I needed to go next, which that, like you said, like I'm still finding direction in my life. You're still
Yeah.
finding direction. And it's like you're always, with each next step, you're getting a lesson, you're getting a learning that's going to help you just as you continue throughout your life over the next 5, 10, 20, 100 years, however long we're all here. Um, it's like
Yeah.
making those decisions, like whether it's a right one or it's a wrong one, ultimately that's going to get you to where you want to be, because you're going to get a lesson if you listen within that.
Completely. And I used to do a lot of stage stuff as a kid. I used to do acting and
Yeah.
things as well. And the irony being is that now I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, spirit, the universe, whatever label that you want to use, has given me all this experience because now I get to blend it all into what I do now. So I get to
Yeah.
do stage events. I get to do stage events and channel and share messages with people. And I'm confident about being on stage because I've been doing it from a young age. I
Yeah.
have this film and career background, film and TV background, which now I get to use because it means that I know how to film things. I know what good branding looks like. I know, like, I've brought that into the sphere, and I know that in my work and coming up, there's more writing and more like creative
Right.
visual stuff. So it's just like, oh, I had to try out all these things because now where I'm at, I now get to use them in what I do now. So I see it that I tried out all of those things
Right.
because they're still in my sphere, in my work, in who I am, but I'm using them in different ways that now fit for what's now bringing me joy and my purpose right now.
Right. And it's such a beautiful thing. Like, as you look back in your life, you're like, wow, this connected to that, connected to this,
Mhm.
connected me where I am today. But I think one of the beautiful lessons in that as well is you can know that where you're at right now and what you're doing, you don't need to freak out and panic. Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Because if you can have this understanding that what you're doing right now is going to bring a lesson, a learning, something that when you get to where you're supposed to go, or where you get to where you're really happy, there's something you will take from here. And I think and I just love how you shared this, but I think there's such a beautiful lesson in that it's like you can almost take a deep breath right now and just like release the stress, the anxiety or whatever it be of am I in the right place, because you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And you may not know it yet, but when you get to where you want to go, you're going to look back at that and go, wow. So instead of waiting to get to where you want to be to have that wow, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. Just have that moment now and realizing that right now you're doing exactly what you're doing. You're building the skills, everything you need so that when you get to where you want, um, you're going to have that moment and go, wow, the
Completely.
dots are connected.
Completely. And that's why people think about working with your intuition is like, well, tell me the future, 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 future.
Yeah.
Like, and it actually isn't. Like, intuition and working with your intuition is about bringing it back into the present moment. Like, how can you heal and work with it to heal the past? And yes, there might be future things that come up, but in the end, the ultimate goal is you're using it to really be fully present in the moment. So that, as you say, you're like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm receiving the guidance. I'm receiving the wisdom that I need to know now that's shaping the future in front of, that's shaping the future in front of
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I think so many people live with like stress, anxiety of am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I doing what I'm supposed to? But just know you're in the right place, and it just makes it so you get to enjoy your life
Yeah.
more, which is I think ultimately why we're here to enjoy this experience.
Completely. And that you're held and supported. And there was just something around a lot of the time when people are looking for, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? It's all about exterior, like what it looks like on the exterior, like what it looks like or what money is
Yeah.
involved. It's very exterior based versus what it feels like. And so if you're someone that's like, I'm trying to discover like what the next job is or what's the next career is or what the next passion is, I always just say, like, go and write down what it feels like versus being stuck on what it looks like, because the
Mm.
feelings are going to make that feel like it's more tangible, that it's more real, that it's more present, that it's attainable, and
Yeah.
that it's here in the present moment. So write down what it feels like to show up in that role. Write down how you want to feel. How do you want to,
Yeah.
yeah, just on all the levels of what that looks like, because it will really help you transform that.
That's beautiful. Follow the feeling, not the facts. Right.
Yeah.
And one thing I would love for you to share that I was just in doing my research on you is, um, how you talk about dreams. And I know we all, and obviously you're saying as a kid, you had all these funky dreams and
Hmm.
all this stuff. And I was just wondering if you could share with people, because I think we all have those dreams where we wake up and we go, what the heck does that mean? And we kind of go into that process of figuring it out. And I thought you have just such a beautiful way that you interpret that and you go
Yeah.
about that. I was wondering if you could share that with everybody.
Yeah, dream state is really powerful. So if you think about all the information we're receiving on a day-to-day basis, like all the
Yeah.
information that we're receiving from what we're feeling, seeing, knowing, and experiencing, it's the same in dream state. So just because you're you're sleeping, you're
Yeah.
actually experiencing, if you're a dreamer, if you're someone that dreams, you're experiencing so many messages and so much wisdom that comes through too. And so in dream state, I always, a lot of the time when people come around, they've had a really weird, crazy dream. It's very much like you go onto Google and you Google, like, what does this
Yeah.
mean? What does this mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? And I always say, just like stop and ask yourself, like, what does it mean to me? Like, what does it mean to me? And asking yourself what that visual means for you, and then reflecting on what's going on in your own life, like right now, because it will
Right.
tell you about your subconscious. The weird dreams I've had, like, I I stop and change my dreams within the dream. So if I'm in a dream and I don't like the ending or I don't like what's happening, I switch and I change it and I change the outcome. So I
Dang.
interact with the dreams, the dream state that I'm in, and I know what's happening, and I can be like, okay, I'm not enjoying that conversation. Let's switch that. And so I kind of
Huh.
go in and I'm like, I move it, I move it
That's so cool.
around. So
Casual.
it's kind of like, it's lucid dreaming, or and
Right.
astral projection, of like moving things around. So yeah, I travel a lot in my dreams as well. So flying dreams. I used to have a dream as a kid where I was like Mercury, like the mercury of a thermometer, and I dreamt that I
Huh.
was like I was the silver liquid, and I would move through things as this kind of
That's wild.
mercury liquid. And looking back, it's just like very like alchemical, and also very like psychic. So it's very like, when I go into that kind of granular space, like I imagine myself as like the tiniest like grain of sand, and I make myself really small into like atoms, and I kind of move around. Yeah, it's wild. And a dream, actually, it's funny that it's been coming up because I spoke about this recently on something else, is a dream about purpose as well, and finding your direction. Just before when I was working in film in my late 20s, I kept having this dream where I was on a stage and I was in front of a microphone, but I wasn't acting, and it was really weird. Like, everyone else had scripts, and it was all about learning your
Yeah.
lines, and I was worried about learning my lines, and I was like, oh, this is really weird, and I was really nervous about it. But when I stood out in front on the stage, it was like I didn't have to learn my lines, and I was just speaking. And
Huh.
I was just like, and it was like this really weird, like this dream. And I was like, oh, this is weird. I'm stood in the front of this mic, and there's no preparation, there's no planning. And I didn't have to learn the lines. And
Wow.
looking back, that's what I do now. I'm a
Yeah.
channel. So there was this thing of like, at the
Mm.
time I was like, oh, am I supposed to be like going back into acting? Am I supposed to like go on stage
Right.
again? And now I'm like, oh no, it was just like a precursor dream for what I do now, which
So
is
cool.
literally, I don't plan. I just walk on a stage and just start talking. And so,
Yeah.
watch your dreams of how they're trying to communicate what your passion and your purpose is, because it's the dream state's amazing.
Right. And there's lessons in there. And
Yeah.
yeah, you just gotta I think it's just so beautiful to say, what does it mean to you? Like, if you had this weird thing that happened that had this random, just random whatever it is in the dream, like, well, what does that image mean to you? Or what does that symbol mean to you? And it's
Hmm.
like you said, it's like tapping into your subconscious, which is beyond powerful. And so I feel like, Natalie, we could go for
Yeah.
hours
So there's
here.
so much to talk about.
Yeah, there truly is. But I'm curious, if people want to get more about you. I know you got a
Yeah.
book, you're doing a lot yourself, you got the podcast. So if people want to get more info on you and everything you're up to, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, my website is natalie-miles.com. I have a book out called You're Intuitive, Trust Your Truth, Take Back Your Power. And it's all about how to connect to your intuition. It's really detailed, kind of guides you through around really how to reconnect to your intuition. And more importantly, talks about why we need it. on this planet right now, with everything that's happening on our planet, of why tapping to your intuition is like a must. And
For real.
and my Instagram, I am Natalie Miles. But yeah, all my offerings and everything, and the podcast, yeah, is called The Doorway, and I basically channel through energy forecasts of the month. So it's basically like telling you, this is the energy, this is what's coming up, this is what's going to come up in your
Yeah.
life, these are the things you're going to need to navigate, and yeah, kind of giving people a dial in of what's coming up.
Right. I love that. And then we'll put all that in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah.
One last question I have for you, and this we ask every single guest because we want to help people find direction, but we want to do it through like taking action in a sense. And so
Mm.
I would be curious, what would you say is one thing someone listening to this can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
Yeah, go and write down what it feels like. Go and write down what it
Mm.
feels like in your life. Go and, if you're feeling lost or uncertain, really tap into how you want your life to feel, not just in work, but personal and pleasure, and look at it as a whole 360, not just focusing on what the purpose is. And honestly, if you can, go and get out into nature. It's going to give you so much wisdom and so much guidance. Take your shoes off, go and put your feet on the earth. And even if you live in a city, go and find a park or some kind of green space, and ask nature to show you the way, because it will.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. Well, Natalie, thank you so much again for being here. I've beyond enjoyed this conversation. It's been absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.